Give me a chance, I promise I'll change. Things will be different this time. Just give me a clean slate. Now, these are things you may well have heard at some point from a narcissistic person in your life. Sometimes they might be said with a sigh, sometimes with tears in their eyes. Sometimes they might be said with intensity. But what do those promises really mean, and are they ever really genuine? I'm Darren Magee, and today I'm going to look at what drives those promises of change, why narcissistic people can find it difficult to change in the first place. But I'm also going to look at some questions to think about whenever you hear those promises. But to begin with, it is important to remember that narcissism is on a spectrum. Now, at a low level, there are some people with traits such as an inflated sense of self-importance, but it is not all-consuming. They can show a degree of flexibility and empathy, even if they're inconsistent. Then there are those with deeply ingrained traits such as haughty behaviour, having a huge, unrealistic sense of entitlement. There's being intensely envious and lacking empathy. Moving right up to narcissistic personality disorder, and the key word here is disorder, and this would be a clinical diagnosis. So the narcissism is long-term, persistent, intense, and pervasive. But just to add to the mix, there can also be other things co-occurring with the narcissism. For instance, there could be antisocial personality, so it's never really a one-size-fits-all answer. But narcissistic people in general tend to struggle to change their behaviours and their attitudes, and for different reasons. Just a few of those reasons being, first of all, they don't see why they should have to. The problem is always external, so if the problem is external, so is the solution. It's up to others to change to accommodate them. Secondly, what they do in many cases seems to work for them. It gets them attention, admiration, and control. They also get to avoid responsibility. So if their behaviour works for them, why would they change? They don't care who they hurt. They just keep on doing what they do until they wear other people down, and it's just accepted as normal. Next, if they were to change, then that might suggest that they had been doing something wrong. And if they were doing something wrong, then they are not perfect, they are not flawless. And that might bring up feelings of vulnerability and shame, which must be rejected at all times, even if it means rejecting reality. Another reason, and this would be common with covert narcissism, is they might just claim to be so broken. They don't mean to be the way they are. They only cheated because of their terrible trauma. They only lie and treat you like crap because of their terrible anxiety. No one and nothing can help them. They're just too damaged, and in fact, you're actually bad and wicked. You lack empathy for pointing out how damaging and hurtful their behaviour is. Now the thing is, just like everyone else, narcissistic people may well genuinely struggle with various issues and challenges, but that doesn't necessarily give them license to treat others any way they like and get away with it. Lastly, there can be a lack of self-awareness. Some narcissistic people might genuinely believe they are good people. Good people do good things, they support the right causes and so on. They might even claim that they are empaths because of the good deeds they do in public. It is only those closest to them who get to see the real them. But they reject any concept of doing or saying anything wrong or hurtful. So whenever they're challenged, they might believe they're being attacked at their very core. They might claim they're misunderstood, they're unappreciated, but generally that they're being treated unfairly. And then there are those who will take on the role of martyr, and they will make a big deal out of taking the punishment for the greater good. But all that being said, there are times when a narcissistic person might actually make a promise to change. And quite commonly, it could be because they're having to face the unwelcome consequences of their actions. Maybe they've been caught red-handed, and perhaps not for the first time. For instance, this could be caught out lying or caught cheating or whatever it is, but there is no excuse and there is no way out of it. Their normal tactics of blame shifting and deflection aren't working. No one is fooled. No one is intimidated by their tantrums. No one feels any guilt whenever they point at their face and weep. Their future faking or their promises of lavish gifts are rejected. So maybe you're done with them. You're not prepared to listen to any more of their nonsense or waste any more of your time with them. And this could elicit a promise to change, but it is more about self-preservation. They don't want to be exposed to others, or maybe they don't want to lose you, their job, their status, or whatever. And in the short term, they might suddenly become more thoughtful. They might even start doing and saying all the things that up until now they just shrugged off as unimportant or not their problem. There could be text messages, emails about how sorry they are. In fact, they don't know what they did to hurt you, but they promise they'll never do it again. Or again, taking on the role of martyr, they might be telling others about how they have messed up, or maybe even post something on social media about how heartbroken they are that they hurt you, and how they promise they will never do it again. And I'd suggest this would be more about getting attention and supply from their audience, rather than it is for you. They might not want people to see them as the problem, but maybe see them as the struggling hero who's trying to make things better. And in some cases, they might even try to make you look like the problem for being so unforgiving. Then there could be a promise to change wrapped up in emotional language. Again, this would be common with covert narcissism. After being confronted, they might tear up, tell you how awful they are, how they just want the world to stop right now because they've done something wrong. And it might sound or even feel heartfelt, but it is supposed to. Covert narcissists are experts at using vulnerability as a means to manipulate others. Other reasons behind the promise to change could be just to buy them time, to deflect accountability, or to try to gain a supply from a different approach. But the question is, do they really mean it? Well, at a low level, there might well be genuine intent, but as I said earlier, it could be out of desperation. Sometimes, if they're caught out and there is the threat of being rejected, exposed, abandoned, or punished, they might just blurt out that they're sorry and promise to change without thinking about what that change is or what it might involve. So it's really just a reaction to a perceived threat. Now, there may be a little change for a while. For instance, they might rein in the narcissistic behaviour so there's fewer sulks and less manipulation. There could even be apologies or cooking your favourite meal, buying you gifts, even going to therapy. And there's promises of a better future together, which could well be what the partners want to hear. But usually, it can be more of a tactic, maybe to give them a reprieve, gain them goodwill, or to try to shift the focus away from their behaviour. But very commonly with narcissistic people, once the immediate threat is past, if they think they're no longer being watched, if they think they've made up for whatever it is they did, or they assume the other person has forgotten somehow, they tend to just revert back to type. Now, when they start to slip back, and if they're reminded of their promise, well, they might start to become defensive again. For example, they might claim that they're looking towards the future, trying to make things better, and all you do is keep bringing up the past. Sometimes you might even hear, "I'm trying to be nice," with a sneer. So here we might see frustration and resentment start to build at being held to account for their promise to change. They might even start making lists of things that you have to change, again, to deflect from their own behaviour, but also to try to regain a sense of control. Lastly, after a while they might claim they have changed. They've stopped flirting with others, well, in front of you anyway. They might have been to therapy, claim that they are now self-aware and emotionally intelligent. They might even start to tell you things their therapist has said about you, the things that are wrong with you. But can a narcissist change? Well, it might depend on many things, such as their intent, their motivation, as well as how deeply ingrained the narcissism is. But above all, they would have to want to change, and they would have to put the work in as well. It is not something that can be done for them. But the thing is, narcissistic personality isn't just a bad habit. It's a deeply ingrained way of them seeing themselves and the world around them. They're the centre of everything. Other people, including you, are just supporting characters. Also, change requires self-awareness. Now, I did say previously that many might claim they are very super self-aware, but that's really no different from claiming they have an IQ of 250 or something. Even when their behaviour keeps repeating, keeps causing problems, it's everyone else who's a problem for not seeing their greatness. Now, because their self-worth is so tied up in how other people perceive them, real change would mean having to face a reality that they have rejected their whole lives. Remember, they're not just lying to you, they're lying to themselves. And to face what's really underneath that facade could be shameful. It means having to dismantle their worldview, and that could be terrifying. Now, that being said, the promise to change isn't always a lie, but it can be shallow, it can be short lived, and it can be a performance. If you push too hard, point out where they've slipped up, or maybe stop praising their efforts, the mask slips and the old patterns resurface, and sometimes they resurface with an extra layer of resentment. Because in their mind, they did change, and you didn't appreciate it enough. You were actually the controlling narcissist this whole time. Now, as always, we might not always know what we're dealing with, or indeed how someone will react. But if you keep getting promises of change and nothing ever happens, if you feel safe enough, then why not just ask them? What is it they want to change, and why do they want to change? Why now? You could even ask them, how do they plan to change? Now, in fairness, these questions might be difficult for anyone to answer, but they are aimed at showing you might be open to hearing more, but you're not living in hope. It's their work, you can't do it for them. The most we can ever do is support and encourage. But many people who have been in narcissistic relationships, well, eventually they reach the end of their tether. They may have spent years waiting for the promises to be delivered, waiting for the positive change, and they're just tired of waiting. No more chances, even if the narcissist does seem genuine about trying this time. But if you do decide to give someone another chance, by all means be supportive, but set boundaries. You can't force anyone to change, but you can decide what you will accept and what you won't. Also, look at the patterns of their behaviour, not just their words. And even if they do slip up from time to time, do they apologise? Have they acknowledged it? And do they try to get back on track? Does their behaviour shift consistently over time? Or is it just a temporary fix in the hope that maybe you'll forget about the bad stuff in a week or so? Lastly, pay attention to whether you see a change in behaviour and attitude, or just a change in their tactics to do the same things. One more thing I would like to add. You can wish someone well in their efforts to change for the better, and you can do it from a distance. So that's a brief outline of narcissists and their promises of change. There are many more examples I could have added, so please feel free to use the comment section for any I may have missed. But if you find this topic to be interesting, please consider subscribing to my channel, and until next time, thanks for watching.